These 5.5 life hacks are small changes that you can make to your everyday life that, at least for me, have helped in a number of different ways. And quite often, when you're making a couple changes, maybe you're changing your diet or you're getting to bed a bit earlier and you do multiple things at once, it's quite difficult to actually figure out what had the good effect if you then feel good afterwards. So it's difficult for me to say number 4 had a 20% increase on my happiness. Like, you just don't know. You don't know. But I can say with certainty that these have helped me in a number of ways. So let's kick it off and start with number 1, which is to sleep with your phone outside of your room. Now, this has been good on a number of levels for me, but we'll start off with the actual sleep quality. And this is something that I discussed on the first episode, and we dived into a bit about how not only having really good quality sleep, but consistent sleep is going to make the time you're awake a lot better. You'll be less tired, obviously, and a number of other benefits. But sleeping with your phone outside of your room will help with that initial getting to sleep phase. Now, from my own experience, I used to, if I was lying in bed, I quite often watch something before I go to sleep, but if I was lying in bed and for whatever reason, it was just, I couldn't sleep for whatever reason. I've said that a couple of times. But if my phone is right next to me, it's so tempting just to pick it up and start scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Twitter or whatever it is. And there's a number of studies, and I've already said I'm not the science guy. I'm not going to get into all of the science behind this. But seeing that artificial light at that time of day or time of night is only going to have a negative effect on you getting to sleep. It like stimulates your brain or something. You know what I'm talking about. I think everyone probably feels that way, that when they go on their phone, they're like, it's difficult to get off, and then your brain feels a little bit like fuzzy or whatever. So it helps in that sense, because if the phone's not in your room, you obviously can't do that. But for me, I'd say the more important benefit I've had is actually what happens in the morning. And it's the same kind of thing, because when you wake up, the first thing you probably programmed to do, and I certainly was before I made this change, was reach for your phone. Maybe you've got your alarm on your phone, as I have for years, and you're there to turn it off. But then it's in your hand, and then just quickly see if you've got any messages. Oh, I'll just scroll on Instagram, whatever it is, and then you're back on it. You can spend however long lying in your bed. And again, we talked about the importance of when you wake up, then getting up and, if you can, getting some sunlight. So to have your phone outside your room, it kind of forces you through the fact there's nothing else to do. I mean, you can lay there for a bit if you want, but eventually you'll just get up. And yeah, as we talked about last time, if you can then go and get some sun, and something I've tried to live by is sunlight before screen light, I'll just put on some clothes, go outside, do whatever I want to do, and I'll take my phone and I'll listen to something most of the time. But this is just a really small thing, and it's been good for me. I've noticed, again, I've changed a few things with sleep, but it's helped me with my sleeping schedule and consistency. So this could be the one you give a go. Just charge your phone outside your room overnight. The one thing that like I said, I had to actually change, because my phone used to be my alarm clock, is that I bought an alarm off of Amazon for like £10 or something, just by my bed, because yeah, you don't want to be missing those early morning activities. So yeah, give it a go. Don't give it a go. Up to you, but one that certainly helped me. The second of the 5.5 life hacks is, and I've got written down here, 3, 2, 1. And this is, I don't really know the best way to phrase it, but I guess it's a rule whereby if I'm doing something that I either know I shouldn't be doing or don't want to be doing, let's take we've been speaking about being in bed a lot. Let's take that for an example. You've woken up in the morning, but you just can't get out of bed. You've slept with your phone outside your room, but it's still like, it's just so comfy, and the world's cold, it's dark or whatever. So how do you get yourself out of bed? another situation you could say is scrolling on Instagram. You think, oh man, I've got to go cook some lunch, but just on Instagram. How do you kind of break that what's the word? That, not really a trance, but you know what I mean. Break what you're doing at that particular time. And the way I've been doing this recently is just by counting back from 3 and going 3, 2, 1. And I don't really know what it is about it that makes it actually work, but there's just something about, I think it's perhaps just it takes you out of what you're currently doing. It makes you focus on something else. And maybe we've been slightly conditioned when you hear that countdown that something happens at 1. Maybe that's the thing as well. I think there's a book by Mel Robbins. I think it's called The 5-Second Rule. I'm not 100% sure, but it does the same thing from 5 rather than 3. But she has written about it and says when you count backward, you're focusing on the present moment and not giving yourself time to overthink or come up with excuses. Now that's paraphrasing, it's not word for word, but you hopefully get the point. So that's one of these ones it's a really quick one to do. You can try it. Maybe it won't work for you, maybe it will, but it's, pretty low risk if, just counting back. If it doesn't work, your life will go on. But it's been a cool one for me, so give that a go or don't. Up to you. The third life hack, and this is actually the 3rd and a half life hack, so this is where the little half one comes in. But this has been writing things down for me. Now, I never used to be a person that would write stuff down, and the main thing I do is actually planning my day, kind of like a loose plan, but this is just what I do, as I say. And there's a number of parts to this. The first is, to me, when you write something down, you bring it to life, and that sounds kind of cliche, but if, for example, so from today I had written down that I wanted to go to jiu-jitsu at 7 o'clock, that I needed to do some shoulder rehab because I got bad shoulders, that I needed to record and edit a podcast, which is what I'm doing now, among a couple of other things. And I guess when you see things written down on a page like that, like I say, it does bring them to life somewhat, and it makes you almost confront it. Because when things are just in your head, you can very quickly dismiss them. But when it's actually on the page, I don't know, there's just something about it that is just like, oh man, I've said I was going to do that. And not just said, I wrote it down. So yeah, to me, it's been a real game changer. And it's probably the best one on this list in terms of certainly productivity for me. And they're not all like, I'm not one of those people that wants to overly optimize productivity, but it's a very simple thing that's helped me just get a few more things done in the day. So that's one part of it. I think a slightly deeper part for me is, and yeah, this is a little bit deeper because I think it's really, really important to keep promises to yourself, and when you say you're going to do something, to do it. And I'll pose this question to you. If you had a friend and you'd organised to go out for a drink with this friend, but they cancel on you. Maybe it's the last minute, maybe they're 3 hours late, but whatever. It's kind of like, okay, let's just say they cancelled the last second. The next week you decide, okay, let's get this drink rearranged again. And they cancelled again. And then the third week you're like, man, I'm trying. I want to see Paul, from my good friend Paul. Not many pools around these days. Couple though. But yeah, they cancel for that third time, and at that point you're like, well, I'm just not gonna bother because I don't trust Paul to turn up, and as much as I like him, he's not someone that I can rely on. Now, if you wouldn't rely on Paul to turn up for these drinks and you lose your trust in him, I think that's the same as when you say you're going to do something yourself, but you don't. You break that trust, or I should say you kind of damage that trust you have with yourself, and therefore the relationship you have with yourself. If you say, I'm going to go to the gym today, but you don't go, and then you say, I'm going to go to the gym, then I know a week later, and you don't go, you wear this relationship and this belief you have in yourself down. You just see yourself as someone that I don't keep these promises. I don't do what I say I'm going to do. And I know a couple of people like this. I think it puts you in a really tough spot. So, and if you feel like you are this type of person, I would say it's not a terminal thing. You can build that trust back up, but I think the best way to do that is by getting these small wins. And I'll link it back to where I started with writing things down. For me, if I write things down, it gives me a better chance of doing them. It doesn't always happen. I'm not someone that does everything when I say I'm going to do it. Quite a lot of these things I'll miss, but it certainly increases the likelihood, and therefore it improves the trust and the relationship I have with myself. And it helps me know that I'm someone that if I want to do something, that I can do it because I've done it before. And that comes back to what we talked about last podcast about building up that evidence that you are who you say you are. I know I'm someone that if I want to get something done, I will most of the time get it done because that's the history I've got, the relationship with myself. So yeah, that's a slightly deeper take on what starts off with quite an innocent thing, just writing things down. But I think that kind of is what it goes back to for me. It's a bigger thing in building up a relationship of trust and a sense of reliability in yourself. So that's how I see that. The third part of this, and it's kind of similar to the first part, but I saw this podcast or a video of Matthew McConaughey, and he's a deep guy. He's got some good takes, but he describes writing things down as a manifestation of our future. And you can certainly take this. It's not something I do so much, but I definitely want to, and I will do, is writing things down in terms of your longer term goals. So I don't know what it may be. Maybe you're signed up for a marathon or something, and you write down, I am going to run a marathon. Maybe you haven't at that point signed up, but that kind of makes you think, again, the same thing I said earlier. You've got to put more pressure on yourself when you see it in writing. So it's good for that longer term goal setting as well. And that's, I guess, essentially what I'm trying to say here. The half a point extra you get from this is trying to prioritize and do the most important thing on that list first. And it just kind of makes sense from a logical point. If you do, you can do the easy things first if you want, but to me, if I get those important things done earlier in the day when I've got more energy or whatever it may be, sometimes you don't have time at the start of the day, so obviously it's not a hard and fast rule, but to the best of my ability, I'll try and get those important things done first and tick them off the list. It's just, a little extra bit that's helped me with that one. Number 4 of the 5.5 life hacks is just to stretch. Now, the way the world's moved with a lot of work being online and even a lot of social activities being online, whether it's video games or whatever it may be, you spend a lot of time sitting down. And for those of you watching on YouTube, and go check out the YouTube channel if you haven't already, but when you're sat down, your shoulders are coming in, your hips are getting really tight, and that's going to build up and cause you problems at some point. You'll be someone that's you see slightly older people and they've got these hip pains and shoulder pains, and you know it's coming for you. So if there was something you could do in the short term that would mitigate or push back that in the long term, or maybe not so long term, if you're someone like me who's had hip and shoulder issues, you would do it. And then it's a sense of, okay, well, where are we going to start here? And I think of my personal stretching journey. It's a terrible sentence, but I guess getting to the point where I'm at now, I remember when I started off trying to do stretching, and it's not difficult to do, but it's just what we've talked about before. It's getting into that routine and doing it day after day. But anyway, I'd look up these YouTube videos of like X amount of time stretching routine, 30, 40 minute stretching routine. And I might do it that one day, but I'd always find an excuse never to come back to it. And I think, again, that goes to what we said before about I tried to go from 0 to 100. I tried to do no stretching, no stretching ever, to doing a 30-40 minute video a day. And I'd do it for like 1 or 2 days and I'd give up, which I should have seen coming. But what I've then done since that point is I thought, okay, well, I can't do a 30-minute video every day. It's just not happening. But I can probably do like 2 or 3 stretches a day. So I found a really, really short video, and it was one that it's just 5 exercises that takes me 5 minutes. You do a minute on each, you do 30 seconds on each side, because it's like shoulders and hips. And yeah, it focuses on those parts of your body that will get tighter sitting down. So it's kind of opening up your shoulders and opening up your hips. It's a really small thing. And the same way we've talked about starting anything, because I started small, it's actually become part of my routine, and I do it every evening, and I have done without fail since I started, which has been really cool. And I guess it goes to show that when you kind of start smaller with these things and the change you're trying to make, that you can actually build up quite good habits. So for me, stretching's been a really good one. I never used to do any stretching, even when I used to play a lot of sport back in the day. It was just always something that seemed like an afterthought, and I'd do it because I had to. But yeah, I'm in a pretty good routine with it now, and it's certainly beneficial in both the short and long term. So perhaps that will be one of the 5.5 that you give a go. The last of the 5.5 life hacks is reducing friction. Now, the way I view that phrase, reduce friction, is if you think of a task or something, not even a task, something you want to do. I always use kind of gym examples because it's something that I can relate to, that will stick with it. Let's say you found the motivation, you think, right, I'm getting on this gym thing, I'm going to go early in the morning before work. So you do everything, you charge your phone outside your room, you've got your alarm set up on your desk, you're feeling good, the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock or 6:30, whatever it is, and you wake up, and then you think, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, okay. Oh yeah, where did I put my shorts? Are they in the back of my cupboard, or did I put them in the wash? And where's my top? And I didn't get my protein shake ready, so I'm gonna have to do that. So, and you're thinking, man, I'm not gonna do all this right now. It's early, it's cold, I'm going back to bed. And I've done that loads of times for sure. I mean, I think everyone has in some senses. You can, I'm sure, think of a situation in your life where you don't do something because there are a few small things that are actually blocking it, and it just makes it seem like a bigger deal than it is. But reducing friction, well, what if I, instead of wait till the morning to sort these things, when I know that I'm not going to want to do them, the night before, get out that gym top and the shorts, and make your protein shake the night before and put it in the fridge, just so when the morning comes and you know it's going to be tricky enough to get up anyway. Because I mean, I live in England, as do most of the listeners of this. 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning is never a fun time, no matter what part of the year it is, but particularly coming into winter. It's hard enough to get motivated to get up and go outside. It's even harder if you've actually got to go and figure out where all the stuff is that you need to wear and take with you. So that's been a really cool thing. And for me, I'm not someone that tends to do those early morning gyms. A lot of people are, but I'm not. My early morning stuff is mainly running and jiu-jitsu, but it's the same principles. That I've got my kimono, and instead of waiting till the morning to go and find it and pack it into my bag, it's packed the night before. I've got anything else I might need for training. I've got my water. I sort out all that stuff before, because I know I'm not going to want to do it first thing in the morning. It also means I can stay in bed for an extra 5 or 10 minutes, which is always nice. So I think that's a really important one, especially when you're trying to take up something new. But yeah, anyway, so that's my list of 5.5 life hacks. Just to recap, it's sleeping with your phone outside of your room, 3, 2, 1 countdowns, writing things down, 5-minute stretching routine, and reducing friction when starting new activities, or just whenever really. I wouldn't suggest trying to do all of these new things at once, although some of them are quite straightforward, like the 3, 2, 1 rule. maybe give some of them a go. Maybe give one of them a go to start with, and see how you find it. And if that works, then push on. Maybe try another one. But I'd really be interested to see how you will get on with it, and if you do try them, and if you find them beneficial. Like I say, they've been great for me. So give it a go. I'd love to hear from you. So do drop me a message on Instagram. I think my Instagram will be in the show notes. And yeah, once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for all the great feedback I've had so far. If you've got any suggestions on topics you might want to hear, or what you think would make the show better, then do reach out. Most of the people at this stage that listen to the podcast know me personally. So yeah, big thank you to all the friends that are supporting it. And if you haven't pressed follow or subscribe, depending on where you're listening, then please do. That's super helpful for me and helping me grow the show. And any 5-star ratings, and I won't give you anything, but I'll be happy. So I'll give you my happiness. Anyway, thank you again for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next episode.